before we go on, it occurs to me that maybe we should recognize the people who work so hard throughout the year to have this event actually happen. You know, it starts way ahead of time, trying to find a room to have it in. This wasn't the room that we thought we were having it in, but it's fine. So I'd just like these people to stand. These are officers and board members of your quarter-century club. So, Vice President is Leslie Jazuski. Secretary is Darcy Brown.
Smile, Darcy. There we go.
Our treasurer, who couldn't make it tonight,
Heather.
is Heather Newcomb. Heather works for this club year after year, and her real job got in the way. Board members, Bill Brogan. Bill, can you stand up? Nancy Armstrother. Larry Wilford. Mike Ash. Gail Kay, who's couldn't come as well. And there's two other people that I really want to acknowledge and thank. Russell Dyke, who does the technical aspects, and my wife, who's done so much helping people with their presentations and doing the research on all this. Okay, moving along. The first inductee to the Hall of Fame is Roz Durham. How many of you knew Roz? She was wonderful and did so much. So presenting for Roz tonight is her friend, Tracy Shepard. She and Roz were friends for over 40 years. So Tracy, come on up and tell us the story.
Does she need your mic?
Yeah. If you want it.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Stay closer to the mic? Okay.
Kiss the mic. Yes.
It is my honor to share with you some stories and remembrances of Roz Durham. First as my friend, and then as the colleague person most of you knew. I met Roz Durham when she judged the Dominion Collie and Shetland Sheepdog Specialty near Toronto, Ontario in 1988. My first show collie was sadly out of coat, so I volunteered to do hospitality. It was my first and only time doing so, but it led to a friendship that lasted more than 30 years. The specialty was on Sunday, so on Saturday, I took Roz to see the Benson and Hedges Symphony of Fire, a fireworks display held on the Toronto waterfront and set to music. I arranged for us to get tickets on one of the sightseeing boats that went out on the water. Now, this was an international competition. We saw Italy perform that night. However, Roz never told me, being the trooper that she was deathly afraid of boats. That night, the water was so rough that the barges that they were lighting the fireworks from were nearly ripped from the moorings. It was rough. But the next day, true to form, she was up and at 'em, and she drew a huge entry. She had 15 smooths, 81 roughs, and 85 shelties. It got very tight getting to the airport that afternoon. I dropped Roz at the sidewalk, parked, and rushed inside to find her. Now keep in mind, this was prior to 9/11, and prior to luggage with wheels, and you could still accompany people to their gate. So, with not a lot of time to spare, I picked up Roz's suitcase and did my best O.J. Simpson Hertz commercial imitation to get her to her gate. I checked in the next day with Roz to see how her trip home was, and from that point on, we spoke once or twice a month, and Roz wrote me the most wonderful letters that I still cherish, often joking about the speed of international mail service, because it sometimes takes 2 weeks to get a letter. It's crazy. Knowing Roz was an introduction to many of the incredible people of our wonderful breed. The Burfields, the Forsalls, the Wieners, the Jensens, Alice Wharton, Helga Kane, Bob Kelly, Lee Runnels, Steve Barger, Tom and Naomi Cohen, Bill Broken, Melinda Sonnenberg, Janet Hitt, Gail Kay, the Hash Sisters, Peggy Darrington, Linda Tefelsky, Heather Newcomb, Meredith Ponendell, Barbara Cleek, Les Canavan, and John Buddy. As a very young man, in fact, when he besides John Buddy wanted to become a professional handler, it was Roz that signed his nomination sponsorship. Roz and I traveled to the CC of A in Reno in the small motorhome that Bob and Roz and their daughter Rob shared while they were building their new home in Magalia. Next, please. There, Roz had Cindy Wiener, now Robinson, handler of veteran bitch. Before we left, especially, while I was at Roz and Bob's home, next slide, please, I saw a beautiful bitch named Snickers, Laren's Broadway baby. Roz graciously allowed me to have Snickers accompany me home after the specialty, and I did finish Snickers in Canada. Now, some of you may remember when Roz judged, she wore a bracelet that had a number of ribbons on, little charms that were ribbons on them, and engraved on the back of those was each of her champions. So in one of the letters that Roz sent me was an identical charm with Champion Laren's Broadway baby etched on the reverse. Roz also knitted this sweater, which I am now going to remove because it's incredibly warm in this house. This was knit from Snickers' hair. Once I wore that for about an hour, I was never felt sorry for a dog outside in winter. As we were at the CC of A, Roz and I talked about possible stud dogs for Snickers. And when I suggested the Adler's Champion, Twin Acres Dark and Dashing, Roz's eyes lit up and she said to me, "Really? You think so?" And I said, "Yeah," and we tried, but it wasn't to be. We tried again with the Marlis dog, and Snickers didn't take and developed pyometry. We saved her for another day, but despite Marcia and Ron's best efforts, puppies were not part of that. Another trip to Magalia, a weekend, quick turnaround trip, saw my connecting flight in Chicago canceled due to heavy weather. My early flight the next morning got me to Sacramento around noon, where Bob was waiting to rush me up to a puppet picking party. Now try saying that 3 times fast. There was a tri-boy bred by Peggy Darrington and whelped by Roz that stole my heart and flew home with me. Roz took whelping very seriously, abandoning the comfort of her own bed for a cot in the kennel for those critical times when we as breeders know we need to be there. He was registered as Penman's the Mambo King, aka Ricky, and finished in Canada and was pointed in the US thanks to Nancy McDonald's expert grooming and handling. I am not the only person that Roz graciously shared her knowledge in dogs with. Marie Markovich, foundation bitch, was Ross Lane's Amelia, who she leased from Roz in 1976. She bred that dog to champion Misty Valley's Cherokee, and from that litter born in 1977, Marie kept a female who finished her title in 1979. She was American-Canadian champion, Marco's California Dreamer. She became the dream of the future, and with limited breeding of only one litter every 12 to 18 months, Marco's collies have now bred over 50 American champions, with numerous other champions in both Canada and Japan. In 1993, Marie was honored with the Collie Club of America Award of the top rough collie breeder, and was also honored as one of the breeders of the decade 1990 to 2000. For those of you that didn't know, Roz was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, quite late in life. But as is common with ALS, the decline was precipitous, gradually taking her mobility, her voice, and her life. Fortunately, I was able to get Roz to the 2017 National in Sacramento for the Saturday Best of Breed judging. Roz was so excited to see everybody, and so many people came up and said hello. But she was thrilled to see so many of her friends, including Doris Werdeman, Helene Forstall, Lorraine Still, and Helga Kane. And they posed for a picture with Roz, a very memorable photo. But when you think about it, think about the incredible font of knowledge between those 5 women. My hair is standing up on end when I think about it. First and foremost, Roz was a lifelong collie lover, acquiring her first collie, Duchess Lady Jean, a tri-female sired by champion Blackout of Topolon, as a teenager living in Sausalito. Roz trained Duchess to her UD title before trying her hand at confirmation. Next, please. By attending local shows, she met more collie exhibitors and breeders and watched collie judging. As an eager student of the breed, Roz listened and learned at the shows from breeders like Ed Selman of Dunbury Collies. Mrs. Edmund Mansur's Mary Oakes was another very dominant kennel in the 50s and 60s, and champion Mary Oakes Humdinger, a popular sire of the time. 18-year-old Rosalind Sloss, that was Roz's maiden name. First homebred champion was Rosalind's Flashy Fashion. Next, please. She was whelped in 1948 and finished in 1952. Not exactly what we call puppy flyer. And Roz and Bob's beloved girl, Rosalind's Mary Maid of Lolita. Next, please. Who was bred by Anita Lee and sired by Mary Oakes Humdinger, finished in 1961. She was the champion of a dam of 3 champions and a 14-pointed fourth. A true heart dog, she lived to the age of 13. Though never having a large breeding program, 18 champions, 4 of which were homebred, bear the Roz Lane prefix, while many others earned their titles due to Roz's expert grooming and handling. Next, please. This is Dark of the Moon. She was out of Roz Lane's Mary Maid of Lolita and bred and owned by Roz and Bob. Next. Champion Buffington Gambler of Lolita. This was owned by Holbrooks, bred by Anita Lee, out of Mary Maid of Lolita, by Mary Oakes Star Border. Next. Rosalind Starshine, out of Altiza Orlet, out of Rosalind Yolanda, bred by the Miriams and owned by the Websters. There's a dictionary joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to do it. Next, please. Rosalind's Executive Suite. Roz is pictured here with Bobby Bruce and Dana Cardoza. Executive Suite was bred by Rita Zanzik and was owned by Roz and her mother-in-law, Velma Hopkins. who I had the privilege of meeting at least once. Next, please. And this is Executive Suite as mature champion bitch. Next. Champion Rosalind Singular Sensation was read by Ross, Don Bickford, and Barbara Pleak. Next, as was Rosalind's champion Loch Lawrence Iceman. Loch Lawrence Broadway Baby, remember Snickers that I took home with me? This was a kid. And by Kangaroo's Keepsake Pioneer, and she was, Iceman was owned by the late Teresa Wiesel. Next, please. And this is the beautiful Pat Atkins Judging Suites. This is Marna's Golden Aurora, the Golden Aura of Ross Lane, led by Ron and Marcia Keller and Ross. Her love of the breed would progress from breeding to handling professionally, writing the Grooming Her Collie book, which was illustrated by her longtime friend Lorraine Still. Breeding under the Ross Lane prefix, and later judging not only widely in the U.S., but internationally in Canada and Australia. Ross was always interested in grooming that would emphasize the best qualities of the dog and making each dog look its very best in the ring. In explaining why many times a dog of equal or even better quality would place behind another, she said, "You can't expect a judge to hunt out your dog's sterling qualities under excess hair." Ross wasn't suggesting scissors can create what isn't there, but saying you can't hide your dog's light under a bushel of hair. Ross loved beautiful, sweet expression and emphasized the importance of eye size, shape, color, and placement play an expression. If a dog lived with Ross and Bob, you better believe it had a beautiful, sweet face. In addition to collies, over the years, the Durhams had Wigs and Leah, American Cockers as house dogs, and domestic short-haired cats. Bob and Ross's last collie, next please, was Champion Ross Lane's Marna's Golden Ring. I can tell you without a doubt, Ross loved the Marna's look. She was instrumental in helping me acquire a beautiful mahogany bitch from Ron and Marcia. To help us all, Ross shared her expert grooming skills in the booklet Your Collie, From Kennel to Showroom. Next. The cover of which is a beautiful pet study by her longtime friend Lorraine Still. Next, please. First published in 1961, with the second public printing in 1972, with photography by Ross's husband Bob. The book illustrates techniques for trimming and thinning heads, ears, feet, and even whiskers, as well as brushing techniques. This labor of love won the 1968 National Dog Writers Award, and the material was adapted into a slideshow narrated by Bill Holbrook, a longtime AKC delegate and collie breeder, and produced by clubs nationwide. Her love of the breed would progress from owner-handler to professional handling. Her most special dog, next please. This was Jam Lady Crestbone, sorry. This is one of the many dogs that she handled, but one that did a lot of winning as well. Crestbone. Was by Champion's Mary Chip O'Dinger, who was the son of Humdinger, out of the Tazarine Venus Victrix, breeders for Tazarine Kennels and Lee Evie. Next, please. Her most special dog was Robel's Jason, born in 1962 and sired by Mary Oaks Chip O'Dinger, the son of Mary Oaks Humdinger. Remember, he was the sire of Mary Maid of Alita. Jason was first and foremost the family pet of the Wares of Los Altos, California. And initially, Mrs. Ware had shown him, and her husband Bob groomed. Now, Jason wasn't shown until he was 22 months old, but at his first show, he took 2 points. After he had 9 points, the Wares decided to hire a professional handler. They chose Roz, and to hear her tell the story, it was love at first sight. 'Sight. 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 ' Jason finished his championship at the 1965 California Collie Clan Specialty with a 5-point major under Arnold Wolf. By 1968, Jason had 21 best of breed placements and was named Collie Review's Outstanding Show Collie of the West, and specialty wins under Les Canavan, Gus Sigritz, John Honig, and Dr. Borman. Jason was second nationally only to George Horn's J. Dean's Breezalong. Next, please. The decision was made to enter the 1969 CCA in Minnesota. Win or lose, this would be Jason's last show. For the dynamic duo, the pinnacle was achieved winning the CCA when Mr. Noel Denton selected Jason with his loving handler Roz as best of breed. Roz was sought with his knowledge and renowned for her kindness. Ron Keller once said, Gail Kay, his own wife Marcia, Bobby Roos, and Roz had the gentlest hands when examining dogs. I can attest to her thorough yet gentle examinations of entries and marvel at how many deep knee bends were required to view head planes at their natural level, having seen her judge several specialties, the CCA in Buffalo in 1994, the 75th anniversary of the Los Padres Kennel Club, and the matches at the Sunnybank Gathering on 3 occasions. Next, please. This was the show that I did hospitality for. Here she is pictured awarding Pebblebrook's champion, best in specialty show, Pebblebrook's Iona Dam Super. And that's Terry Pavey of White Gates, Chelsea's and College showing, and Leona Maureen holding the photo. Next, please. This was the smooth dog at that show, owned by Carol DeLorme, and bred by Carol DeLorme. Next, please. This is another specialty that Roz judged, the Mason-Dixie Collie Club specialty, and that is Nancy McDonald showing Claire Knapp's Highwood Inheritance to Winner's Draw. Roz is a well-liked and well-respected judge. He enjoyed many specialty assignments. As a judge, Roz made a point of finding the least expensive option to get to judging assignments, often taking multiple flights rather than non-stops if it meant saving host club money. Roz considered being chosen to judge her breed's beloved bitches at the 94 CCA the highest honor any judge could have in their life. The epitome of an entire judging career, a dream come true. Roz loved bitches, and the entry in Niagara Falls did not disappoint, with over 400 bitches from across the U.S. and Canada entered. It was one of the few times that Bob attended the shows because he was usually home, but he knew how much this assignment meant to Roz. Next, please. This is Pat Lassard's dog. It was Winner's Bitch Snooze at the 1994 specialty. Roz always gave every exhibitor a chance to do their very best and be seen standing and moving to their best advantage. Roz recounts of taking a long break before winner's class. Next slide, please. To clear her mind of any preconceived notions of winners, she wanted to see them fresh, like seeing them for the first time. And this is Taffy Mole's Deep River Pass with Care, bred and owned by Taffy Mole, who we just recently lost. As a former exhibitor and handler, Roz understood the dream each entry represented and how each should be proud of being in such a quality-laden group of winners. Always wanted to find a dog's positive values, Roz pulled out of 4 contenders. Next, please. This was a reserve winner's bitch, rough bitch, with the CCA, owned by Adrian Lehman and Mary Arbovich. Next, please. She awarded winner's bitch to Pebblebrook Showbiz, bred by Peter and Marion Leach, a puppy with a beautiful smiling face. Roz did not being able to take her eyes off this fish. Bitsy went on to win Best of Winners and Best Puppy at CCV for the trifecta. And here she is being shown by somebody you probably recognize. Tom Cone. The dog was owned by Gay Shepherd. In his wonderful book, Best Buddies, John Buddy recounted a conversation he had with Roz following one of her judging assignments. In discussing the bitch that won, John commented on how Roz's face lit up when she saw the bitch, and how she approached her like a fine piece of porcelain. Roz went on to tell John how beautiful her headpiece was, and constantly referred to how good it felt. Her touch was gentle, and she described cradling the head, a term and style that she always admired in Billy Ashenburn. There was never a doubt that Roz loved a beautiful head and a well-placed almond-shaped eye, and often described the perfect muzzle as rounded like a toilet paper roll. She knew what she liked and what was pleasing to look at, and didn't hesitate to reward that, regardless of who was at the top end of the league. Some folks will bemoan a judge saying, oh, they always put up so-and-so, but the truth is, so-and-so knows what that judge is looking for, and brings them the dog or the bitch that best matches what they're looking for, thereby improving their chances. Next, please. Roz's wonderful eye for beauty and detail spilled over into her passion for photography. She and Bob both enjoyed the hobby and went on a photo expedition in Western Canada. While their Tarzana kitchen offered a temporary darkroom, when they moved to the retirement home in Magalia, they had a legit darkroom. Roz's specialty was, next please, surprise, surprise, head studies. Beautiful head portraits. And here we have, this is King Bear dog. King Bear's Full Jubilee, read by Helga Kane, is the head study by Roz. She did portraits, head studies of purebreds and pets alike. Annually, she raised funds for a local shelter with her business Portraits of Love, and her work can be found in ads, magazines, and gracing the walls of many loving pet owners. But photography wasn't the only interest Bob and Roz shared. They met in college when they were both radio majors, and Bob was producing a radio adaptation of The Wizard of Oz and needed someone that could voice Totem. Some friends told Bob they knew just the right person, and when Roz barked and growled, the part was hers. I think that might have been the only time in her life she barked or growled. For good measure, Roz was also cast as Linda Goodrich. That was the beginning of a love story that the last 64 years and produced two wonderful daughters that pursued their passions in ice skating and gymnastics and horses and purebred dogs. The Wizard of Oz played a recurring theme throughout their married life. Roz loved it when one of the Nationals in Kansas followed the Yellow Brick Road as their theme. Next slide, please. Roz and Bob moved from Tarzana after Bob retired from the film industry to build a beautiful home in Magalia above Paradise. Roz continued to do work in the medical transcription field to fund the Polly passion, but volunteering at the Paradise Performing Arts Center kept them busy and active. While Bob ran the lighting and sound and booked a lot of the shows at the PAC, Roz would volunteer as an usher. I remember they were thrilled when the PAC finally had raised enough funds to get real theater-type seating instead of folding chairs. After she stopped working as a medical transcriptionist, Roz volunteered at the Feather River Valley Hospital. For anyone that knows Paradise and Magalia, and there's probably just a few in the room that do, the trip up to Magalia along Coodlink Road is winding and borders a very steep valley, and when weather snowy can be quite treacherous. A couple of scary incidents and a desire to escape winter snow prompted a move down the mountain into Paradise, where Roz and Roz built a beautiful new one-story home. Roz was also Next slide, please. Roz was also an avid supporter of the Collie Health Foundation, providing many items for the silent and live auctions and working the silent auction tables at every CCA she attended, and judging on no less than 3 occasions at the gathering at Sunnybank. And this is one of those occasions. And here we have Valerie and Lisette, the Paradise Collies on the left, Roz, Alice Wharton of Country Lane Collies, and Joe Reno of High Crest Collies. Next, please. She had intended for many of her collie treasures to be left to the Collie Health Foundation, but unfortunately the horrific campfire that devastated Paris, California, less than 6 months after Roz passed away, consumed the home they shared and left nothing other than a garage door and a washing machine in the rubble. I truly believe, though, that it was a blessing that Roz had died earlier that year, because I think the death toll for the campfire would have been 2 souls higher had she still been alive, because Bob would have struggled to get her into the car and escape the flames. It is always difficult to say farewell to a friend, to us and to our collies. Roz has enriched our lives in the dogs she produced, the dogs she handled, and the people whose lives she touched. And I know there are many of them in this room. Roz has left much behind and taught us the importance of service to and stewardship of our beloved breed. I never heard Roz utter an unkind word about any person, dog, or any judge's decision. She looked for virtues, not faults. I truly miss Roz and her ever-present smile. Roz was exactly what you saw every time you showed to her or spoke with her. Sweet, kind, unassuming, and caring. The collie world needs more people like Roz. I encourage you to strive to exemplify the qualities she shared with us all and pay it forward. Thank you, Roz. Next, please. This isn't a really pretty picture of her, but this is produced by myself for the Quarter Century Club in loving memory of Roz Durham, with inspiration from Snickers, Canadian champion, women's Broadway baby. She was gifted to me. Thank you all.